for my army today, I decided to run a Joffrey list, and the NCUs are looking a little strange. I'm using a lot of the new stuff, so Tycho I figure is a good pull with these guys since I can heal them now, and Walder Frey offers a nice good control element and gives me the ability to stop other things from hurting Joffrey if I just kind of mute them a little bit. We're backed up by Clegane's Mountain Men and Dario. I think the combo of crit blow sundering is just too good to pass up, or crit blow precision. Sorry. My opponent is playing an Othell list, and he's trying to cope with the changes from 1.5 on Night's Watch as well. So they lose about 3 points out of this one. So he's dropped a third NCU. Otherwise, this isn't too far of a this isn't a far cry from what Othel looked like before. It opens up some room to put in some cool attachments like Pip on the builder crossbowman, and then you're not worried about the veterans and Gren being a little bit of a waste or drain on resources. So it has been a while since I've posted anything here. Just between some medical garbage and the healing process for that and some more complications, things really slowed down. I think this battle report should have been released in 2019. It was supposed to be like the last one, right? But even so, here you can see that I do not appreciate Clash of Kings as a scenario, uh, because I'm still deploying as though the 1.5 or 1.4 rules update for this never happened. We both deployed on the corners of the table, but I don't think it's that big of a deal. It's something we'll have to deal with later, but going for the objectives early is good to do, just because it's rough because with Joffrey, I don't want to kind of dangle him in the middle of nowhere, just ready to be charged by whatever. So trying to get the top objective probably is the better move for me right now. But I just have the Mountains Men up there, and they're not really meant to be holding objectives at all. My list is ultra elite, even when it comes to the NCUs. But I think with Clash of Kings, I have a feeling, or I'm hoping at least, that I can come back in with all these nice attachments and good character units and just start bashing people down. I know I'll kind of have to rip the band-aid off of losing 3 points for Joffrey right away, or hoping not to at least by keeping them a little bit more defensive. But Night's Watch has the tools to take him apart, so I'd have to be pretty careful with how things go there. We also decided to roll for random terrain on this one, so we've got a lot of linear things on the table. It's just a real awkward looking setup. So we've both exhausted all of our NCUs by now, and we didn't do anything really techy or fun with these. It was all just your normal run-of-the-mill stuff. My opponent got turn 1, which I was fine with because I can utilize the top of turn 2 to start taking some big alpha swings, and I do get Joffrey very far up onto this objective. Given where the Sworn Brothers are, they'll be able to get on my side just fine, but I think that it'll take them a little while to get there, especially with that wall. I'll negate the side bonus, and I have a pretty decent grip of cards right now. I think I have both the Wealth of the Rock and Joffrey's card. I can't. I think it might be I Am the King or something like that. This game's super old, and I don't play Lannisters often, so you'll have to forgive me, but it's the card that lets him block wounds. So Tycho starts out the top of my turn on 2, and I'm not too worried about giving up the objective on top really right now with them, because I can just bring in the Knights of Casterly Rock and smash whatever gets onto that objective. But I do want them to go more for the center, because that center objective looks like it's pretty open right now, other than what my opponent decides to put into it or deploy into the middle. And I really wanted to use Walder to heal up or not heal up. I wanted to use him to get rid of that palisade that's in my way. But I think there was an unfortunate crown zap that hit me, and I wanted to heal them back up. I was a little bit worried about losing them really fast, especially with the crossbowmen kind of hanging out there. So, and it's not even that the Sworn Brothers were deployed over there. I think I'm recording remotely, so I know that the whole world looks a little tilted here, but I wasn't able to cut off or frame this quite the way I wanted to. So you're kind of seeing the side of our table. I know my gaudy water bottle and all of our stuff is over there, but my opponent looks like he deployed on the top of the screen with everything, so that kind of made it so I wasn't too worried about Joffrey kind of taking the position that he did. And I know that I meant to have my opponent on this battle report too, but it's been a long time since we played this game, so I didn't want to have everyone suffer through not only trying to remember what was going on in this game, but him as well. So this way, at least you're only dealing with one confused person instead of two. So I I'm trying something different out with the well, I mean it's all different because it's Lannisters and they're probably my least played faction, but I've decided to drop down Tyrion Lannister into the oh, I've got the name, it's right. Why can't I say halberdiers? I don't know why I couldn't say halberdiers. Like I know what they are, and their new rules are awesome. It's not like I've forgotten or something. I just had a brain fart. But I was hoping to kind of ramp up a little bit on control with this one between Walder Frey and Tyrion and some of the Lannister cards. I feel like I'm getting some of the control that is being lost by not bringing a third NCU or a commander that kind of brings more control-y cards. I think Joffrey's got some really aggressive cards, even though one of them is more defensive. But having Tyrion in here just kind of lets me monkey with my opponent a little bit more. And I missed the window for it, but my opponent has Dario and the Sworn Brothers come in, and they had tried to charge Joffrey's unit. I wasn't super yippy about that happening because crit blow and precision together are just murderous. I think the rule is kind of weird, um, but they ended up not making it. So the failed charge was really good for me. I decided to come off the objective. I'm not quite sure if that was the greatest idea or not, but then I realized that I can go to half on their flank. I did pop a banner to get here, by the way, so that's why things are. I just kind of all one fluid motion for me, but I'm able to go 50% and stay on that objective, so that makes me pretty happy. And with the massive hit that they just took, and a horrible panic check, this means that I'm not too worried about anyone contesting the objective that I'm on right now. Other than, I'm not in the greatest position for things. If I could have wiped this unit, that would be cool because they've already had their activation this turn. But the other thing that is interesting about Clash of Kings is that for these really hyper pumped up units, like things that are aggressive that have a good attachment in them or an attachment that really turns them up to 11, sometimes it's better to just leave them on one rank because they're doing a lot less work to you. And if you have a unit that's more defensive, like Kingsguard have quite a lot of defensive elements to them between counterattack and then a really good save, plus all of the great cards that the Lannisters and Joffrey provide for them to stick around. It's almost better to just have them kind of beat on you with, the one rank dice. It doesn't really hurt you that much. So if all that happens on this bottom part of the screen is that Dario just kind of flails with his, 3 or 4 dice or whatever it is for Sworn Brothers, I think I'm okay with that. Now, I tried to get my Mountains Men earlier away from the crossbowmen, but I did forget that Pip was in that unit, so when they shift 3 inches, so I'm a little bit closer than what I would have liked. And I think he's able to get a shot off on me this turn. And this is one of Othell's cards. I can't remember if it was the Sundering one or the Critical Blow one. Well, I guess the Sundering doesn't matter. It's got to be Critical Blow. I guess it could be Vicious, though, too. I'm not 100% sure. But we end up getting my opponent to where he's at the max 12 instead of getting in a little closer, just to be extremely safe. One of the things about games like this, where you have a small amount of activations on the table, is that you have to take as much as you can with giving up as little as possible. And that's where some of these ranged attacks are really helping you out because you're putting aggressive work into your opponent, but they're not really doing much back to you. Without some kind of weird shenanigans, I can't get the Mountains Men into those crossbowmen. They're just too far away. So these guys roll like bosses for their saves. They only lose 2 guys out of that, and then they pass their morale too. So It was really not that big of a deal for them to be shot like that. It was just it was nuts. So they decide to maneuver, which is not what I really wanted. Like, my whole idea was to make sure that these guys could take the combat zone to remove that palisade, but I've found myself one NCU short all the time. I just couldn't make it happen. So I have to take the long way around the palisade, and now that I've kind of figured out what's going on with me, uh, I also realize it's maybe it's not a palisade that I'm in front of, it's a spike pit, because it looks like the palisade's in the middle. But there's two things in my way that are not something that I want to have to deal with the Mountains Men. Like, I didn't check to see if I could thread that needle. So the Mountains Men, being as aggressive as they are with having Dario on them and how well they're surviving this game, I'm just not really getting the most out of their activations this early. And had I deployed like I should have deployed on this, the Mountains Men probably could have taken a more central position and then gotten up the table a lot easier. Uh, maybe even the halberdiers could have started up because they're a little bit more on the catcher's mitt side. So who knows? It's always a learning experience playing this particular scenario because, like I said, I do not play it very often in my own like casual games. I just really I don't have a whole lot of love for this scenario. Mostly because of the way that I play the game. I'm an attrition based player. I like to whittle my opponent down in attrition to the scenario victory. And with this one, it's really hard to do that. You kind of it's a weird endurance game, uh, I'm not sure if I really enjoy that so much. But my opponent brings in more Sworn Brothers, and they were coming from the side, and I completely forgot that they existed. So I was extremely nervous, but they roll their charge, and they fail it by 1 inch. So Joffrey's safe, and I'm super happy with that because I didn't really want to lose him this early. Like, I was prepared to lose him, but just not on turn 1 or 2. Yeah, turn 2. I was hoping that he would stick around a little bit more. So my opponent's charge distances are probably helping me better than my playing is in this game. Because I think after this turn goes, my opponent's got the top of it. Joffrey's already activated, and there's nothing stopping that unit from getting into his side and just really doing a lot of work to that unit. So I'm not super looking forward to what's going to happen there. But I'm still controlling this objective, so I've at least got that going for me. I think the Knights I ended up putting them in, and during the lull, I got shot up again because this was another one where it wasn't that I wasn't paying attention; it's just that I kind of forgot what was going on. But the crossbowmen had used the combat zone to shoot, and I was like, I'll just put them here. I could have deployed them back a little bit further so that they might have a little bit longer of a charge, but at least they'd be a little bit more safe from the shooting. But I place them aggressively and get my charge in, so I still have at least 6 dice going in on this one. So it's not the worst thing in the world. It's still going to do a lot of damage to the crossbowman. My opponent expends a weaken token because I roll a ton of 6s, and then out of that one, I think I only get 1 hit on it. So this was really unfortunate for the Knights of Casterly Rock to just kind of get blunted so much right away. And that now we're trying to see if my opponent can actually draw a line of sight to the Knights of Casterly Rock, and he can. So we're kind of finagling the maneuver to get, or not the maneuver, but the charge to make sure that he can get the least distance possible, and not have to worry about failing a charge with an unfortunate number. Because I think he's failed 2 so far. So he rolls that one in, and it doesn't work. So this is the third charge he's tried to attempt, and it is the third charge that's failed. So again, my poor decisions are not feeling as poor because my opponent's dice are kind of folding in on him, which is unfortunate because I'd rather, get advantages in games off of my own skill and proper tactics or whatever. But in this one, I truly am just not playing the best game, and I'm being helped by my opponent's dice. So he's got the top of this one. I don't think there's the tough part for this is he if he takes the charge, which is the better play, he ends up losing the ability to take the combat zone. And the if he takes the combat zone, he doesn't have anything that's really good at fighting me right now. I mean, Dario could take it, but it there just wasn't a good option for it. So he's gonna leave it open for me, and hopes that Joffrey's unit takes enough casualties to kind of fall down and bite it. They're down to like a 5+ save on the side, so it's not looking super hot for them. So he uses a vulnerable token, and it's just barely enough to get the whole unit. And I must not have had the cards that I thought I had in my hand, because I probably could have used them there if I would have had them. So now things get really unfortunate for me. It's turn 3, and Joffrey at least hasn't activated yet, so he's able to come back and do some work. But my opponent's able to get positioned in a way where he can start to take the objectives again, and or start to claim the objectives and get some points on me, because that with all those linear obstacles there, he's kind of in a safe spot for the most part. And now I don't have the greatest option for just taking the swords and attacking. Like nothing's really going to help me out here. So I think I do I Am the King, or Traitors All Have Their Heads on the unit of crossbowmen, because I think maybe I can fight my way out of the pool there. Oh no, it looks like I took the crown with Walder Frey, so I could shut off the bowman, and then I zapped them as well, so they took a couple wounds for that. So that wasn't a bad option. I don't know why I really decided to throw it there. Maybe it was so that I could just try and whittle them down more. The Sworn Brothers have done their thing, and Dario's just kind of dirtling back there. I don't think he's going to commit to the table. So putting it on the crossbowman wasn't a terrible deal for me. Now if he decides to retreat and somehow shoot at me, it's not going to be the greatest for him. But again, that combat zone goes unclaimed because nobody can really do anything with it. And now it's going to get to the point where whoever claims it whoever charges next is going to be the one that ends up taking the brunt of that. So my opponent's got, I believe up there are veterans, the veterans with Gren, and they're trying to maneuver for a better position to get on the side of the, well, they'll always get on the side, but this way they don't have to worry about taking like a bogus charge. So my activation is to take Tycho and just take the tactics zone, so that I might be able to dig for some stuff that can help me defend myself from those veterans. So vets charge in. They don't fail it this time, so I think we have our second successful charge. And Othell comes down again. Now this one I think is the Sundering one. Sundering, it basically is going to turn them into Sworn Brothers, and I think that one also gives them precision too, so they've got crit blow and precision with Gren. Just some nasty combos with Othell Yarwick and the rule interaction with those. So I got plenty of saves here to take, and the Knights of Casterly Rock are probably they're not long for this world, but surprisingly they only take 2 wounds, which part of me wishes that the unit would have been wiped on that one. Oh no, they failed their morale then. Or maybe I just was not paying attention to the dice and something killed them. So I'm happy they're dead, because it's unfortunate that I'm hemorrhaging so many points right now. My opponent's already taken 4 from me, and he's going, unless I can start contesting these other objectives, he's going to take another 2 from me. So it's not the greatest place to be in right now. I think I'm not doing Joffrey very much justice at all at this point. So there's the crossbowmen still haven't activated, but they're Waldered, so they're not going to be doing a ton in terms of shots, or they'll still be shooting a bunch, but at least it's not going to be Sundering. So I'm not super threatened by them right now. I do have I think it was the Mountains Men that ended up activating to take out that palisade, or the spike pit that was in the middle of the table. I do think it was a spike pit in retrospect right now. It's almost like I needed to sacrifice a whole turn to just kind of clear out space for myself so that I could, not just whiff it super hard next turn. Because with the units that I have left, they're not extremely resilient, so I do have to worry a little bit about having my opponent wipe me out completely. I just don't have the parts on the table to do things. So I think this was a paid mutiny to try and shut off Pip, or not shut him off because he's already shut off, but it was just to try and do some extra wounds to them because I do want to try and whittle those guys down to under their second rank. But the Mountains men ended up losing a decent amount of guys, not as much as they would have if they were sundering, but we're still sitting on 2 ranks, I think, with them. So Tyrion's unit ends up getting a charge, and they make it in no problem to those Sworn Brothers. So we get to throw the awesome 8 dice now, and I think the way this pans out is they hit 6. So it's not bad, but my opponent has a shield that guards the Realm of Men, so he ends up blocking 1 or 2 of those. So now we've got, it was 1, so there's 5 saves that come out of that, and he doesn't make many of them, so he loses a whole rank, and the panic check is fine. But I'm on the objective before he can get to it, and that makes me happy. So I think I had a panic token to use on them. I was just I don't know. I didn't think it was the greatest use of the panic token, but I didn't think I was going to get much of a better chance to do anything with it. And one of the bummers about having to charge with the halberdiers right away is that you don't get to use their fun order to attack before they're charged. Set defense or hold the line. No, hold the line's different. I can't remember. Like I said, I'm not a full-time Lannister player, so I think most of my games within the last month have been with Free Folk and Starks. And I'll rattle off any Free Folk rule I have to. So the Sworn Brothers are shifting off to the side. He wanted to clear a path to make sure Daario could get in. It's not like Dario's gonna do a lot of work with only 1 rank, but at least it's something. Every activation you don't get to take advantage of is basically the unit just not existing really. And still, I haven't wiped out anything of his. So that's another thing that I'm feeling, is that I want to try and take his units down to nothing and just kind of leave them there, but I don't get the extra points that I need by not killing these units. So it's kind of hard for me. Like I said, this scenario is just not one that clicks with me very well. And maybe the list isn't the best. Maybe this list isn't the best list for this scenario. I kind of wanted to see how it would go. Four units that are not super duper elite. I mean, 2 of them are, but they put out a lot of work, and I think a lot of it's just me getting chunked up in the beginning by all that linear terrain and not being able to do what I wanted to. But my Knights of Casterly Rock come back. They're hoping to take out some stuff. Unfortunately, after that, Tyrion gets charged by Daario, so we'll see how much impact they have. I'm not sure if my opponent used his order or not. I think he didn't, because he didn't want to have to worry about missing a bunch of these. I do lose a whole rank off of it, though. Like, I don't pass a single save. And my panic check is okay. I think it was a vulnerable token I had, and he thought it was a panic token. But I make it through that just fine. So now the Knights get to go, and my goal is to try and get these crossbowmen out of here. I don't know why I think I'm at given my position, I kind of wanted to get rid of the veterans. I probably could have charged them, but I think I was looking for points. So I was at this point debating charging the crossbowmen. So I think ultimately I end up going into the crossbows, because then I can try and get into the back and start taking the objective and denying him those points. So this honestly could be a 3-point swing, 1 point for the unit, taking 1 point away from him for the objective, and then getting the objective myself. So I felt like it was the more power play, just so that I could, or the smarter objective play, I guess. But the Knights of Casterly Rock unfortunately fail to charge by 1. So the karma comes back and is on me now. But Joffrey's unit is out there too, and my opponent's been is out of activation, so it means that I can just put him in and charge him right away. So they go in. I think they ended up busting their flag for a critical blow, or crit blow and sundering, or whatever it is they get off of that one. And we do a decent amount of wounds. Like they hit on twos, so I ended up picking up all the hits and re-rolling them to see if I could fish for some crits. And they do a lot of damage to that veteran unit. And the veteran unit goes down because they fail their morale by 1. So all that work I wanted to do with the Knights of Casterly Rock ends up not happening, but the Joffrey just single-handedly wipes out a unit of veterans, which is fun. But I don't think I have enough juice to get anywhere near that objective. I mean, not like I could do anything with it anyways. So, unfortunately, the only amount of points I take from my opponent that turn is 1. So he's up 4 points on me right now, and we're going into turn 4. So I have the top of this one, so I got some good options to do some things, but I'm not in the greatest position in terms of like trying to fight the game or win the game back. I do have the objective that Tyrion's on. Well, I mean, I'm on top of it, but he's contesting it with that one unit of Sworn Brothers that's just got one dude hanging out in their rank. But I think I can get this turn. I think I can get the this turn. I think I can get the crossbowman gone with the Knights of Casterly Rock just being right there. So my opponent decides to play Horn That Wakes the Sleeper. I'm not sure what happened in the turn order. Maybe my opponent wasn't out activated, and I just missed some things, which is probably not that much of a shocker right now. So I think the big unit of Sworn Brothers is swinging into Tyrion's unit, and they don't have anything. I think they have a Night's Watch recruiter on them, which is probably where they got their one guy from. But Tyrion's unit ends up rolling like rock stars. Or no, they don't roll like rock stars. The vulnerable token gets used. They would have had 2 guys left, but the whole unit gets wiped. And now my opponent can get into that objective, which I'm not. This was just a horrible turn of events. I was really hoping that Tyrion's unit would hang out a little bit longer. So now my opponent adds insult to injury by taking the black on Tyrion. So now he's got some ability to negate some of my tactics cards as well. Not many of mine target units, so it's not a big deal for me. But there are a few that I'd like to kind of hang on to. So it's not ideal. You never like it when your opponent takes your stuff. But at least with the way Clash of Kings works, just because he has Tyrion in that unit of Sworn Brothers doesn't mean that he gets to knock Tyrion off of my unit. So we'll both have 2 Tyrions we'll both have a Tyrion at some point in this game. So we're just trying to finagle to see if my opponent can completely overlap this, and then end up pivoting in a way to where he can stay away from his or where he doesn't overlap his Sworn Brothers. So we've left a couple dice on there to draw the line, and then we're using the Peacekeeper Games pivot tools just to see if the unit can get anywhere where it should. You know, like it needs to not be overlapping the other unit. After putting all that stuff down and trying to figure out the move, we learn that he can't move in any way to get onto that objective with that unit. I think what we end up doing, though, or what we probably could have done, which we skipped over, and usually I'm pretty good about letting my opponents know what they can and can't do, so maybe I just hadn't thought of this at the time, but I think Dario's unit, if Tyrion's Sworn Brother unit would have moved a little bit further, I think that Dario's unit might have been able to pivot enough to get onto that objective, and that would have netted him some extra points. It would have taken him up to 8 instead of 7. But going into turn 5, being 6 points down, that's not really where I want to be. I don't have to worry about Tyrion or about Joffrey giving up any more points other than the one that his unit's worth. But still, it's not looking super hot for Team Joffrey over here. My opponent finally decides to clear his NCUs off the board. I don't think we've moved up the turn tracker at all. But the Mountains Men make their charge, but they end up getting a disordered charge on it, so I don't get the rerolls out of it. So the first time that Dario gets to do something, it feels like it falls short. But with the panic check and the couple wounds that I did get in, he ends up taking a lot of unit or a lot of models out of that unit. So it wasn't a bad charge. It just could have been better. Would have been nice to take out the unit so that I could just move on to the next thing. And this gives my opponent an opportunity to take the swords if he wanted it. But instead, it looks like he's going to just take the objective, which isn't a bad play. It's a smart play because he knows that he can score. If he scores faster than me, all he needs to do is get 3 points this turn, and then the game's done. Um, and I thought that I was maybe at an advantage here with having Joffrey on the table, but like I said, this is maybe the fifth time I've played Joffrey, and it's not really. It might even be like between 5 and 3 times, something like that. But Lannisters are just not my. I'm not well practiced with them. So I think at this point I'm just really digging deep. I'm like really combing my brain space to see if there's any way I can get myself out of this problem, because it is a problem right now. I've got 1 point. It's like late game, and my opponent's only 3 points away from scoring when the his ability to kill units isn't. It's not better than mine. I think we're both equally killy, but he's kind of collapsed the one side, and I know Tyrion can come in and kind of zap those guys off the objective, but right now things are looking a little weird for me, and I just need to try and figure out my most the most advantageous activations that I can get. I think I pulled out my phone there because we were kind of looking for we were looking for a rule for a second, and I can't remember which one it was, but my opponent had said, "No, I'm not going to do the thing that we're looking for." Or he took a moment and said, "No, I'm not going to do that," and then we got to where we're at now. So the Walder hasn't come down on those guys, so it's good for him to get them out of the way right now, especially since he can take the combat zone to get the extra shot out of them. It's a really big deal for shooting units to be able to get that free activation. I think he shoots into Joffrey's unit, to be honest, because they've only got 8 wounds in them, so it's easy to get rid of. However, there's not much. I think they just plink off of Joffrey. They don't do anything to him at all, even with the sundering. So we're sitting okay. It might have even been the knights that got shot. I'm not 100% sure. Looking at the table now, I must have missed a moment when they lost a model. So the knights are going to be the ones that go into the crossbowmen because they should be able to just munch through them and move on, especially at full ranks now. So now it's just kind of positioning them to where I can get into the best spot after they charge. Like I want the Surge Forth to put them in a good position here. So my hope is to like go around that linear obstacle that's in the middle of, or that the bowmen are standing on. So they're destined for death. They end up just whiffing it. So the knights move up, and they're just trying to position to get into the business in the middle, because if I can start clearing the middle, there's a chance, even just a small chance, that I can try and fight back into this game. But it's really hard. Like, it's a real uphill battle right now, especially with me having so few activations and those mountains men not being able to take that unit off the table. Gotta stay hydrated. So I think my opponent at this point is just really trying to find ways to shut me out of taking any points away from him. And other than healing his units, it's more so just trying to figure out where to put things. Like the other thing that is frustrating, and it had to be done, I needed to get points, and I needed to deny some things, but the crossbowmen having taken the combat zone to shoot means that they'll be able to come back in and shoot like normal. So the Knights of Casterly Rock are kind of like sitting ducks over there because they can get shot from the side with sundering, and then it's no good for them because right now they've only got anywhere from 9 to 7 wounds left, depending on what's going on out there. But Instead, it looks like my opponent decides to activate Dario's unit. No, not Dario's unit, the Sworn Brother unit. And they end up taking the Mountains Men take a decent amount of casualties. They make their panic test, though, so they're still holding out on that objective. And right now, I think we're tied on ranks. But I don't believe I've used Tycho yet this game, so I think that might be coming up soon. Which Mountains Men are not the ones that I want to have to do it with, but if it means that I can score an objective, I'll take it. So something else caused me to lose some more wounds, and then my opponent to fill his unit back up. Not 100% sure what happened. Maybe it was that I lost a unit and then failed a panic check somehow, and then his recruiter went off twice. But it looks like I did use Tycho and filled up that unit again, and then I decided to heal them so that I could try and get the so that I could get them back up to full rank so they can contest his objective at least, or beyond, or not contest it, but I think they're the ones who are scoring the objective right now. The Mountains Men are. And Walder Frey ends up shutting down Dario's unit. It seemed like the best thing to do with not taking a Dario charge from the side, even if it's only, 2 models. But waiting in the wings are a unit of veterans and a unit of crossbowmen just kind of waiting to get their hands dirty. I also just realized that my opponent is using, I think, some Stark Sworn Swords as veterans because he's currently painting his veterans. Well, probably not currently anymore. Maybe he is. Who knows? But the veterans were being painted as of this game, so he didn't want to bring them out and worry about chipping them or anything like that because he hadn't sealed them or anything, which I don't know about everyone else, but for me, I use the Vallejo polyurethane stuff through my airbrush to prime with, and I really haven't had much problems with paint rubbing off, and I'm not sealing my models or anything. I mean, I don't bash them around like a madman or anything, but it's just been interesting that of all the models I've painted with that particular primer, this game seem to hold up well on that on the models that the paint seems to hold up well on these models. So while I was choking on words, it looked like something had happened to my Knights of Casterly Rock. So, the stupid bowman came in and shot him down, and now now there's more business going on. Oh, the Sworn Brother unit just decided to attack into the Mountains Men. So Tycho saved him a little bit of time, but didn't really change much in terms of when they decided to die. So it's unfortunate, but I think they hadn't activated yet this turn, so I've at least got that hanging around with me. So it must have been the vets that got that activation because they maneuvered around. I think at this point we're just trying to discuss what options I have versus what he's got going on. Killing that Mountains Men unit ends up putting him to 8 points, and now it's just that he's got to deal with the units that are contesting, because I don't think there's a way I can get to the far side to stop a unit from grabbing that objective. Or maybe Tyrion's on it. Not sure. I promise the games in the future aren't going to be this gray and shady. I just really, it's been a little bit over a month since I've played this particular game, so a lot of these things are really really foggy to me. But my lone knight decides to go in on some veterans and try and do some work there. We take out a decent amount of vets, but not enough to really make me feel like I did a ton of work here. But they don't fail their panic check, which is whatever. I don't really expect them to very often. But now we've got more shots coming in on the crossbowmen, so they must have not activated earlier, and they're trying to do so now. So Pip gets to run him up 3, and then that will put him in range for shots on that one Knight of Casterly Rock. And I think he's flipping through to see if there's any Othell enhancements that he can play that'll at least guarantee that that unit goes down. Although 7 attacks from the side with Sundering, there's not a huge chance that these guys are going to survive it. So I think now we ended up playing shield that guards the realm of men, but it didn't do anything for me, like in terms of trying to keep that guy alive. So I lose the unit. That puts my opponent at 9. So, or maybe it puts him at 8. No, it puts him at 9. So it looks like it's getting real rough here for me. I am sitting at 4 points at least, so I at least get to have that going on for me, that I'm not like sitting on 1 still. So I don't think Joffrey's got the best of things to do other than just try and get into the veterans and maybe take them down so he can back up. But I think I might have just... Yeah, I'm not sure what I needed to do differently there. I think I was trying to avoid something. Oh, I popped a banner to move them so that they would get away from something. Oh, looks like there's a linear obstacle. Maybe that's a hedge that's up there that I wanted to get around. So I make it in, and I think I might have used my last banner. And we take out a good amount of them. I mean, there's only 4 of them left, so we don't get to kill the unit. And I think with this charge, killing the unit might have put me in a position where I might be able to fight back, but it would be real. It'd be a real like not long-lasting fight at least, because then I would take another objective and kill the unit that's sitting there. But they didn't quite do her. So now his last unit of Sworn Brothers is going to try and fight into Tyrion's unit. I think they're sitting on 2 ranks right now. So it's some Tyrion on Tyrion business. And I lose a couple guys, and my panic check looks like it's going to do fine. I rolled a 6 and a something, so I knew I was going to pass it. But my opponent has a panic check, and I pass again, so that was fine for me. They're holding it up all right. Too bad they couldn't hold up better during the game. So now the Mountains Men are coming in. I'm hoping to try and get like a side charge on the veterans to kind of clear them off, but I don't know to what effect at this point. Now we got crossbows redeploying. No, Sworn Brothers with Dario redeploying. So they've kind of just existed in that side of the table. My opponent's like, it's not like they're going to do anything anywhere on the table, so it was fine for him to come in right there. He's not holding any of the objectives that'll let him deploy differently, so he's not really getting any effort or any effect out of the being able to flank on the sides. But since this is probably going to be the last turn, it's not really a big deal because when they come in on the side, they lose their activation anyways. So I maneuver the Mountains Men up a little bit with the maneuver position on the board. This way I can make sure that I should be able to get the charge on the veterans. I think I'm just going for glory points right now, just so I don't flat out lose by a ton. So I think my opponent was just trying to check to see what the charge would look like for those guys. And at this point I had said something like, you know, if you go for that charge, you'll just seal the game right now. If you make it, I think you needed a 5 to get in on this, or on the Sworn Brothers. Otherwise, I think the game ends up going another turn for sure, because the Mountains Men should be able to take out the veterans from the side, and then that will swing a couple points my way, and then I can get into a position where maybe I can close the game out. But I was so convincing that I got my opponent to do it, and he rolled a 6 for the charge. I think it was a 6 at least. A 6 or a 5, either one would have made her. So he gets in on Tyrion's side, which is no good for me. I've only got those 2 ranks left, so it should be pretty easy for him to... Or, well, it's realistic that he could take them out with crit blow and sundering and all that, and then the panic at -1. And this is Dario's unit too, so there's a bunch of 6s. I think that was 8 wounds that are just like automatically going through, and then there's saves on top of it. But I think, like I said, I'm pretty sure there's only 2 ranks. There might be 9 guys in that unit. Nope, he goes and fishes for more 6s, so I lose a bunch of them right off the bat to Daario, and then for saves I lose another 3. So I'm pretty far down. I think I only got 2 or 3 guys left in there. And the panic check I pass, or no, I fail it. I do fail the panic check with enough to kill the whole unit. So he's got free reign on that objective, claims the other objective. He's at 10 points right now. So instead of ending the game, we end up seeing, how far we can take this. So the Mountains Men end up getting in on the veterans. And let's see how many Daario hits we can get in there. So it's enough to wipe them out without needing them to take any saves at all. I don't get close enough to grab anything, which I still... No, there's nothing there to grab, so they just kind of get into a position and then reconfigure themselves in a different position. So I do go up to 6 at least, so I don't have to worry about losing this game by a ton. I just lose for the most part. There's no way I can get back points right now enough to be able to finish the game out. And my opponents, when the objectives end up scoring, he'll end up going to, I think, 12. And I know it seems like kind of defeatist, or maybe it's like crushy to keep going at this point, but we are trying to play for Adepticon, and I know my opponent wanted to stop at 10, but I had encouraged him to keep going because you do want to make sure that you're racking up as many victory points as you can to make your tiebreakers good. So even if your opponent's sitting there and, they're telling you that, like, oh, you've got this, you should just stop. Like, you can request that they just keep going so that you can get good tiebreaker points. I know it seems really gamey, but when you're at an event, you kind of have to like make sure that you're doing the best you can for yourself to set yourself up for better scores towards the end. And I see there's really no problem, in my opinion, asking your opponent if they wouldn't mind grinding out to the end of the turn just to try and get more victory points for tiebreakers. I mean, if my opponent wanted to walk away from the game because they were just defeated by it, I wouldn't like push the issue. Like, I don't want to make the experience miserable for anyone, but just got to get your points when you can. So that ends up finishing the game out. It was a fun one, but Joffrey is definitely he's a good commander. All of his changes were great, but I lost him really early. And it was unfortunate because I don't feel like he got to do enough work to like balance his points out, and I really misplayed around those linear obstacles. I think that's what really messed me up in this game. Like, when I trace back to reasons why I lost, that would definitely be like my opponent gave me every opportunity with his failed charges to kind of get back into the game, but I just wasn't maneuvering or navigating around those obstructions very well, and that's on me. So I hope you enjoyed this battle report. Look forward to more coming out soon. Hopefully they're not going to be in month lags anymore because I'm kind of back on my feet and getting out there more. Like the video if you liked it. Subscribe to the channel if you want to be notified when I do more stuff. Let me know in the comments if there's anything you're really itching to see from me.